We now will move into the third section. We are running a little bit late, but hopefully people will appreciate these. And this is about rain barrels and water conservation. As has been mentioned several times, we are in a pretty severe drought here in Salt Lake. We don't get a lot of rain in Utah, but we get enough that rain barrels can actually play a role. So I wanted to ask Andrew Stone, a board member for East Liberty Park, to describe his setup. And then I've got a short presentation about the setup I have for basic, intermediate, and advanced rain barreling. But Andrew, you've got a pretty impressive setup. So can you tell us about it?
Sure. I wish I had pictures. I don't, but they're right outside. I have in my yard 7 rain barrels that I've hooked up. So 50 gallons each, roughly 350 gallons worth. And I run 4 off of our garage in the back, and then 3 come off one of the downspouts at the front in on the actual house. They're all gravity fed. They're all daisy chained together, which I know Jason is going to talk about that. But the 3 are connected and the 4 are connected to each other. So as one fills, it overflows into the next. I use just a gravity method for gaining the water from my barrels, and I have hoses that I attach to them, and I'll run hoses as long as I can, or to the places where I can, and then I fill buckets. And I use my rain barrels mainly for springtime watering and early summer, and I'll water each plant individually with the hose, or it doesn't really work to hook up to the drip system with it being gravity fed. And I also don't want to use it up too fast. And then for our flower pots and others, I fill a bucket and I use that to water the flower pots, just as another way to maintain all of those without having to turn on the hose. Especially flower pots can be wasteful because the hose is running from pot to pot to pot and you're leaving water trailing behind as you go. So being able to just fill a bucket and individually water each one works very well. Usually my barrels will last me through July, those 7 barrels, sometimes to the end of July, usually to the beginning or middle of July. So it really gets me through the spring after the spring rains are done, and through the early part of getting into the summer. Then they empty, and then we just pray for rain. Last year, I really did not refill any of my barrels until almost October. Actually, middle of October is when they were finally full again, and then winter came and I had to drain them. So, but it does get me through. And if we could just get a little bit more water in the summer, then it would get me through quite a bit of the season. But no pump on mine. Jason's going to talk about that as well. So I'll let him continue.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for describing that system. Is it ever a struggle in your family? You were like, I think we just need one more rain barrel, you know, like.
Well, actually, I got another rain barrel, and I have the Ivy barrels that I got through the county program at one point. And a friend of mine was moving out of the country, and he sold me another barrel, and I had 6 Ivy barrels and 1 lone random barrel that was 40 gallons, not 50 gallons. So I took that Ivy barrel and I replaced one and gave away the smaller one. I really thought about having 8, but I really don't have more room unless I create a whole new row on another side of my house from another downspout. And I didn't want to do that either. So I really want a cistern. I want a cistern. I want to be able to fill it with gray water and rainwater. And someday that'll happen.
Got it. Well, it is an evolving process and it takes patience,
Yes.
just like gardening. So thank you for describing that. I will go ahead and see if I can share my screen and describe my system. It's not 7 rain barrels, it's just 2, but I do have some interesting add-ons to them. So I'm going to describe. Yeah.
I'm sorry. One thing, I don't know if you're going to talk about the legality of rain barrels, but a lot of people say rain barrels are illegal in Utah, and they are not anymore. You can have up to 700 gallons worth. And I don't know if you were going to mention that, but I thought I'd throw that in there.
I appreciate that. I had a little side note, but I didn't know the limit. But that is good to know, and that it's true. They were illegal in Colorado up until a year or 2 as well ago. So it's a common misconception. But I am being open with my rain barrels, so hopefully I won't get hauled off by Detective Meinzer after this meeting for talking about it. So I've got 5 sections to my presentation: why rain barrels, some equipment that can help you get set up, where to put them to maximize their use, what I have in my house, and then some basic troubleshooting. So let's go right ahead. So why rain barrels? Really, it's about saving money on your water bill and feeling better about planting a garden and watering it to the extent that it needs. You're not, especially in a drought condition, you can feel better about, hey, I'm just taking water that's sitting in a barrel. I'm not going to be paying for it. It also allows you to be very specific about where you put the water. You're taking water that would normally flow under the ground and you're putting it into your tomatoes and your peppers and your other plants out there. So it's you're being a little bit more efficient and specific in how you're doing your watering. And as Andrew mentioned, Utah law allows up to 2 rain barrels up to 100 gallons without registration, and you can freely register up to 700 gallons with the state. And they just want to know where you are for some reason. I'm not sure, but it's very easy to do. And rain barrels are legal in Utah. You can have them. You don't have to hide them in your backyard anymore. But saving money and preserving water are the 2 main reasons to do it. I think it's kind of fun too. So where can you get rain barrels? Well, the city and the county and some local nonprofits actually have some good options. Unfortunately, they're out of stock right now. They tend to have a lot more in the spring. They sell out and then they repopulate in the fall and winter. So Salt Lake City Public Utilities and Utah Rivers Council are 2 programs that sell 50-gallon rain barrels. There's information on the next page. I'll show you where you can kind of get in a wait list or get in line for when those come back. But if you want one now, you can buy them on KSL Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. Andrew, you just sold one yourself just a couple of weeks ago. So there is kind of a market for these as well. Farm stores sometimes have them, and then Amazon.com as well. Although mailing a 50-gallon rain barrel through FedEx or whatever is a little bit of overkill. So you can buy them local. That's definitely better for the environment, and just kind of keeps things in circulation. Generally, they're 50 to 60 gallons. They're about 40 inches tall, and they come with garden port hoses so that you can connect them very easily to pretty much things you probably already have in your tool shed or in your garage. So this is where you can actually find them here locally that are sold by the Salt Lake City Public Utilities and the Utah Rivers Council. Use those phone numbers and those resources to get on the wait list. I have some QR codes that you can scan as well. That will enable you to get in line for when they restock. They are currently out of stock, but those are what the rain barrels they actually sell look like. And they generally allow people to take up to 2, and they just require that you use them and you don't resell them, but you have a plan for how you're going to integrate them into your garden. And these are good prices as well. This is cheaper than you'll find them generally for sale in a retail store. So it's a pretty good deal. And we'll make this presentation available as well afterwards. So if you wanted to copy down some of this information later. So what kind of equipment do you need? So the basic setup is you need a way to fill your rain barrel. And that's often called a downspout diverter. That's something that you connect to a downspout coming off your house or garage, and that fills the rain barrel. Here are 2 that I've used. I currently use the bottom one, the Fiskars Diverter Pro. I find it to be a little bit better at keeping debris out of the rain barrel. It has an interesting valve system that keeps leaves and other things from going down the hose pipes. But the Conserve one at the top also works pretty well. They generally work for rectangular downspouts. If you have a circular or an odd downspout, you probably need to do a little bit of engineering to make it work. But you can also find kits that do that, or just go to your local hardware store and put something together. But these are the ways that you get the water into your rain barrel, and they're very important. You don't want to just have an open barrel sitting out in your backyard, because as Andrew mentioned in the chats, these things can also breed mosquitoes. And so you want to keep these things covered and keep them well contained to prevent mosquitoes from breeding inside that standing water. So these are the 2 basic downspout converters. The other basic equipment you need, you probably already have, which is a hose, a watering can, maybe a spray nozzle, things that you would use to help bring the water to your plants. Now, a little bit more advanced or intermediate would be a way to connect or daisy chain rain barrels. And so there is a short little hose, a 6 or I think 8-inch hose that you can use to connect rain barrels. A lot of them come with ports at the bottom that enable them to be connected this way. And you can see it's just a simple garden hose connector. You can also get these hose Ys or hose splitters that enable you to get more hoses and more attachments to your rain barrels. These are things you can find either on Amazon or at your local hardware store. They just allow you to increase the utility and the ease of use for your rain barrels. And oftentimes they're designed specifically for rain barrels, although obviously you can use them for regular garden applications as well. Now for the advanced, the rain barrel pump. As Andrew mentioned, he does a gravity feed for his, which means that the only way the water comes out is the force of gravity or air pressure pressing down on the water inside the rain barrel. And once you get to the bottom, it doesn't come out very fast. The Prana Universal Rain Barrel Pump is one that I have. It works really well. It's about $100, so it's a good investment, but it's specifically designed for rain barrels. It's not a pump designed for ponds or sort of water features. This is one that's designed for rain barrels. It's got an input and an output. And I actually use mine to pump water through about a 75-foot hose. Actually, it's about 95 when I added another hose. And it comes out as if it's regular water coming from the side of my house, the spigot on the side of my house. So it works pretty well in terms of keeping the pressure up. The only thing I would say is that if you have one of these, try to keep it out of direct sun. When it gets heated up, it actually expands. And I've had some problems where some of the joints have expanded and water has leaked out. So I built a little sunshade for it to keep it cool and keep it operating nicely. But I've used mine for 3 years every summer and had no problem with it. The other advanced thing you might add would be a Wi-Fi outlet. And this way you can combine that with your pump and actually hook it up to a sprinkler system so that you can time the pump to come on and off to water garden beds or raised beds or any part of your garden, and have that water flow from your rain barrels. That's what I have set up in my house, as I'll describe in a little bit. So I can do watering, not just when I'm there, but early in the morning or late at night, when it's often a good time to do that kind of watering. And you can buy these Wi-Fi plugs on Amazon. Generally, you want to get one that maybe is rated for outdoors or for moisture, just because you'll be using it probably around an outdoor plug or something like that. So that's the advanced equipment. Now, where should you put your rain barrels? Well, Andrew mentioned that he has some coming off of his garage and some coming off of drawing water from his regular house. It's really about finding the most surface area in the best location, because the more roof you have, the more water will drain into that downspout. And that means you'll fill them up faster, and that even a little rainstorm could fill an entire barrel. I found that a gentle downpour can fill a barrel in my backyard within maybe half an hour or so. In a truly torrential downpour, it's just squirting water out the sides. It's amazing how quickly those fill. You also want to make sure that the rain barrels are raised up. The higher they are, the easier it is to actually fill a watering can and other devices underneath them, because you can actually just set it down on the ground and then use a little hose to fill it. And the higher it is, the more gravity you have pulling that water down as well. You want to be a little careful because these things can weigh hundreds of pounds when they're filled with water. So you want to build a sturdy 2x4 or cinder block frame for them. But if you can raise them up off the ground, the water will flow better, and it's easier to actually use them. Some rain barrels come with stands as well that can hold them up. I built mine out of 2x4s, as you'll see in a picture coming up. And also, you want to make sure your rain barrels are close to where you're gardening, especially if you're using watering cans. You can be toting that around. Water's heavy. I think it's 8 pounds a gallon. And so you get a good workout moving it around. And so try to keep it within the vicinity of where your garden is. Are there any questions so far about what we've got going on? I wanted to next get into the setup that I have. I don't have 7 barrels. I've just got 2 50-gallon daisy chain barrels on the side of my house. It drains from the entire back of my house. And it's filled actually with 2 ways. And this kind of gets around the problem of running out of water in the summer. So I have a Fiskars Rain Diverter Rain Pro thing on the downspout that you can see right there with the green hose coming into one of the rain barrels. I actually also have a little filter that filters out some of the sediment. You can see that sort of like almost like a coffee filter right next to the barrel. And then I also built a homemade cistern to collect gray water from the shower, and I've got a bunch of little kids from the kids' baths. And that's how I sustain my rain barrels throughout the summer. I probably get about 3 gallons a day just from heating up the shower water in the morning by putting a bunch of trays down at the bottom of the shower. And then when my kids take a bath, which they're actually taking one right now, can't wait to go collect that water, I probably get about 40 gallons or so, 30 to 40 gallons from their baths. So that is how I keep my rain barrels operating throughout the summer. From what I've seen, the water, even if it's a little soapy, doesn't cause too much problem for my plants. They appreciate it when it's 100 degrees in July. And I'm able to keep my barrels mostly full throughout the summer just by using those two other options in terms of adding water. And you can see I also built a raised platform for mine. You can see how the watering cans are down below. That makes filling them so much easier and increases the rate of the water flow that comes out. And then here's the pump setup I have. You can see the Prana pump right in between those two rain barrels. I have it actually feeding into that brown hose that runs about 75 feet out to the front garden beds, where I have it connect to a drip irrigation system. It works very well. And then I also have the light yellow hose there that I use for filling watering cans right down below. It's a little complex. It looks like an artificial heart or some sort of complicated system, but it holds up throughout the entire season, never really falls apart. And then, as you can see, during the summer, I just put a little sunshade over the pump to keep it from overheating, not when it's on, but just when it's just gets too much sun. You run the power, actually I drilled a hole into a crawl space and put an electrical outlet in the crawl space. So I'm able to actually keep the plug on the inside of my house for that. And it's connected to a Wi-Fi outlet, goes on at 5:30 in the morning and 11:30 at night, and runs it to about half my garden at the front of the house. Now here are some troubleshooting questions about rain barrels. One is that your water doesn't flow fast enough. Definitely raise the height of your rain barrels. That helps immensely, or adding a pump can do that. Water becomes stinky or too stagnant, not something you want to put on your vegetables. I actually add a bleach solution, a little bit of bleach and water to my rain barrel water, and that actually, it's kind of like poor man's chlorine, keeps them smelling much better and reduces any kind of growth that happens there. You can also purchase additives that will kill mosquito larvae in there as well. And make sure that everything's covered up as well. Make sure there's not any open tops or even mesh that mosquitoes or other bugs can get in there to lay their eggs. And then, of course, running out of water, filling up with gray water, even just collecting water in your sink, like when you're washing vegetables or doing stuff like that. It's amazing how much water we just let go away that we could end up using. And if you've got rain barrels and you've got a way that you can add it in, it's a way to extend their life deeper into the summer. Or you can be like Andrew, just add more barrels, and then you've just got a bigger reserve that you can draw from as you go. That's the presentation. I hope people learned something there, and we'll